season has been brought to you by Radisson Red, Johannesburg, Rosebank. Style you can bank on. Great day, everyone. Ed Dudley coming out of Durham, North Carolina, in the United States. And I promise one day I'm going to record somewhere else, hopefully in South Africa or France or Milan. I don't know. One day somewhere. Why are you rolling your head? What's that all about?
Why Milan? I mean, South Africa is the place to be. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Charmaine coming to you from beautiful Johannesburg. And we're going to speak.
Everybody knows who my one and only girlfriend is. You thought we were going
to get
You thought we were going to get away with the episode talking about my one and only girlfriend? Oh, by the way, we recorded a little earlier and she's got another boyfriend I knew nothing about. She pulls boyfriends out of the woodwork left and right. Just thought I'd let everybody know that. So men, be careful. She might adopt you as her boyfriend.
Well, I have lots of girlfriends too, dear Zulu Ed. And
you don't talk about them. You always talk about boyfriends though.
That got me stumped. So we're going to be speaking to an incredible woman today. I'm so proud and happy to be associated with this amazing woman. And and that's Zulu Ed's new girlfriend that he hasn't told you anything about. So can we just bring the amazing Mariapaola McGurk into the Ubuntu house?
So
welcome, Maria.
You didn't know you had a new boyfriend over there in States, did you?
No, news to me.
Please let your husband know I'm harmless.
Well, when we create the connection point, MP, friends for life. That's it. So you've acquired a new boyfriend and Flo's good with it. As long as I approve the goals, she's happy to go with it. Florida is actually his wife.
Wait a minute. That just didn't even sound right. You know, my wife approves it as long as you approve it. So you're like the go-between. You know, that just doesn't sound. Well, you want me to tell you what it sounds like, but.
Let's move on the discussion, Maria. It's incredible to have you in the house. Thank you for spending time with us, and know how busy you are. So you know what? I think flow with the conversation. I'm going to take a little bit of a backseat.
You are? I guarantee she won't by the end of the show. MP. Just, for individuals such as myself, and stateside and some others, just tell us who you are, what you do, and then more importantly, what drove you to the work that you're doing right now.
Well, that's a big question for somebody in their 40s. You've been around for a while. It's like big stuff, but I'll try. I'm in essence a visual artist. That's my first career love. That's my thinking process. That's where I go to. But there's a range of things I do, which I think lots of creatives do. They have to juggle many balls. And in that juggling, you realize you've got skills and work that you hadn't considered before. So I do consulting work. I do research, which really, really interests me. And then I do visual arts. And the visual arts falls into two categories. I produce my own work. And then I love working on projects collaboratively with other artists, with other creatives. I love stepping out of the silo of the visual arts and working cross-discipline in the arts sector. But very strongly, all my work falls within the creative economy, and quite strongly within Africa and South Africa.
That's good.
She's also mom to 3 beautiful kids. She's a very confident, capable young woman. And the reason I'm going to say it, Maria, I'm going to say it on this platform. I have so much respect and gratitude for you. Besides being an amazing artist, but just your courage as a woman to step out in places and voice opinions, even though they may be repercussions. I've witnessed you do it in so many places, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for the impact that you have by doing things of that sort. So, so much love and respect for you.
It's so interesting because on one hand, you get people who say, good for you, go do it. And on the other hand, you have people rolling their eyes like if she would just shut up. So you've got this this mixture of voices. And I studied, I went back to varsity about 5 years ago. I applied for an MBA. Crazy. I had no real sense of what an MBA was, but I knew that I'd been running a company for 6 years, and the company was doing better than I had anticipated. We had 10 employees, we were growing, we were winning awards, and I really didn't know the questions I should be asking in order to understand what I should do next. So I started doing a bit of research. What were the options I could do? And I went, sorry, I'll get back to what you said. And I went to an expo on business schools. And then that's where I found out the reality of what MBAs actually cost, which is unbelievably expensive. But there was one that offered a bursary. So obviously that was the one that I applied for. and I won a bursary with Henley to do my MBA. And it was so interesting because in that class, I was very much outside of my comfort zone. I'm very comfortable with artists, with creatives, with the crazies. I'm not the fringe. I'm not so comfortable with corporates and government and people who have a long-term plan for their lives. I'm not that type. And in the MBA class, it became very evident to me a huge opportunity of what the creative economy can offer society or the working world on a much larger scale. And it was that in the creative economy, you have to have a voice. You have to have a perspective. You have to stand by something. If you're a visual artist and you do not have content or concept or identity, if you're not grappling with philosophical reasons why you're here, you will disappear. You're invisible. So part of studying visual arts and performance, acting, all of them are the same, music, is finding your voice and allowing that voice to be heard. So it's quite interesting when you say, like, you speak up, because I've taken that to another level. I do it in my artwork, but to me, you have to live by that. In any context, in any situation, you have to live by your truth. And if you stuff up and get it wrong, that's fine. You apologize, but you have to live by what you think, and let the cookies fall. What's that saying? Fall where they may. I can't remember it. So yeah. So I very consciously speak my mind, especially when I think something's not right.
I have so much respect for you because I hear you that visual artists and musicians have a voice. They have it in their work, but when it comes to stepping out and supporting other people, it's not often done, actually. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's dangerous to step out there because you exclude yourself from the community. So I've watched you play in that spaces, and I've love and respect. So yeah, that's why you're on this bloody platform. Let me tell you, it's because you're different. You have a story to tell from your artwork, from just from being a bomb, from just being a beautiful human being. So yeah, Ed, do you have a question for this beautiful young woman?
Yeah. When did you realize that you were a creative? I look at some creatives, and some of them always knew. Like, I have a cousin who is a creative, but he never leaned into his craft. But I remember him at 7 and 8 years old being able to sit and literally draw a person that he's looking at. So when did you realize that you were a creative?
No, I'm not one of those. When I was young, I really wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a Italian pizzeria owner, so my family could all my family could come and eat for free. That was my goal. I don't know how I would have made money. That was my goal, and a public speaker. And my father said to me, you can be a public speaker, but you have to have something to say. You have to be a specialist in something in order for people to want to hear you. And that kind of bummed me out. Like, oh, damn it, I have to become a specialist in something in order to be a public speaker. And then, I started art really by chance. I failed science. I wasn't a very good student at school. And I failed science in grade 9 or grade 10. And I was told that I have to take home economics, which is hotel, I think it's called now, or art. And I went and I did my research and I looked at the matric kids, their files, and the home economics file was much thicker than the art file. So I chose art because the file was thinner. and within 6 months, art was my strongest and my favorite subject, and it became a voice for me, and it became a critical part in my life from 16 and still is. And it becomes the space where you can say the words that you can't say, the feelings you do not understand, the emotions you can't express. You start expressing them through picture, through other methods that people, you're speaking to an audience, but you're not explaining to them the narrative, and that's become really, really important. Life is a very complicated experience for all of us. We're all layered, and we all have many things that we're going through, and to express those verbally, I still struggle to do it. So art becomes the space that you speak about the depth of you, and then I can talk all day long about the creative economy and about creative entrepreneurship and youth unemployment in South Africa. But when you're speaking about the truth of yourself, it's in the work.
Thank God for thin files.
Oh, that's a beautiful share. The work behind you, Maria, that's your work, right? Because your pieces are amazing. I mean, that's incredible.
So I'm a paper cutting artist. So look, it's paper that I cut. Can you see?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, beautiful.
So I have a black piece of paper, and then I cut out the images in order to create the artworks. It's a very delicate, time-consuming process. I got into it about 30 years ago. My parents got a gift from my uncle. My uncle lived in Hong Kong a lot of his life. And they got a gift of a traditional paper cutting artwork, a small work. And, even when I was in high school or early varsity years, I couldn't understand how they cut paper like that. And, I was a painter for 10 years, and then I went into this about 12, 13 years ago. And I started experimenting and exploring. And it's a traditional art form that you find in lots of places. China's one of them. You find it in lots of places in the world, as almost as folk art, craft art. But you don't find it in South Africa. So there was it took years of experimenting, trying to find the right paper, trying to find the right tool. There was no, it took years to try unravel how to use this art form. And in that process, I found my own style, which was quite lucky for me, because I couldn't just learn from the masters, because the masters are on the other side of the world. So at the moment I just cut paper. That's my only art form for artworks, and then I'm busy on a mural project at the moment with a group of artists. But paper cutting is my art form. Yeah.
Her pieces are incredible. I saw your work at Henley, the mural.
Okay.
Yes, I did. I do have a piece of. I mean, she was one of the commissioned artists for Business and Art South Africa this year for the 25th anniversary. I do have to go make time to actually get it framed and all of that. It's going to happen in December. So your theme was Mother's Window, right? The commissioned work.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what inspired, because it's really, really beautiful.
A Mother's Window, it was a concept that I was playing with before I got the commission from BASA, and it was quite amazing, because the CEO of BASA phoned me, and he was like, I need to see if you're available for we would like to choose you for as the commissioned artist for BASA Awards 2023. And I had to, sorry, what? And he was like, we want to choose you. And I'm so used to getting calls. Can you help us with project management? Can you help us with facilitation? Can you help us with research? And to get a call from BASA and they want my artworks, it was almost like he was speaking a different language. I couldn't quite.
But you're so humble. You're bloody talented.
I was so excited. I was, and he was like, "Do you think you'll be able to produce 24 works in the full mansion?" Yes, yes. I was so excited. So anyway, the body of work. A fellow artist and friend of mine, Bolelang Lipile, he in 2020 or 2021, he had a studio at. I used to own a big workshop with the Colored Cube, and he had a studio at the workshop. And he came in one day and he said, I've got to go home. I was like, okay, cool. I'll see you. And he said, I've got to go back to Soweto. Cool, ciao. He's like, he killed my mom. And I said, what? And he said, he killed my mom. My stepdad has killed my mom. And I didn't even know how to respond. And Bolelang left. And he's also an incredible artist, and his work so reflects this experience that he went through. And then I sold the building, and I didn't see him that much, but I used to engage with him on social media. And he posted a picture about a year and a half after his mother had been murdered, and his mother had been shot, and then the man tried to shoot himself. He didn't die, and he went to hospital, and then he was released. And he was out on the streets. And Bolelang, understandably, was furious. He was so angry with what had happened, and he was trying to protect his sister, and really, really, really tough time. And on social media, on Instagram, he posted this photograph of a window, a small window, with the blind half open. So it was, like somebody had opened it and left it, and it was skew. It's actually in that picture.
Is it this one?
Yeah. No. Sorry, one sec.
No worries. Who would think we're going to go into this kind of conversation, Ed? It's so like the way.
So that's the window. And oh geez, he posted this on Instagram, and he wrote,
Okay.
At my mother's house, a mother's window or something. And I contacted him. I said on the post, that would be a beautiful cutting. That would really be a beautiful cutting. He said, please go ahead. And I started playing around with cutting the photograph and cutting the image, because it works really well in paper cutting, because all the white is cut away. And it just became so representative of I don't know, it just spoke to me, and it had a depth of him returning home to his mom's home, but she's not there. And the pieces of the home and the context that are reminiscent of somebody living there, somebody's presence who no longer is around. And then I started doing research, and I went to my mom's house, and I started taking photos of my mom's windows. And then I put a post out on social media saying, please send me your mother's windows. And, not everybody has a mother. So I didn't mean literally your mother. I meant your caregiver, the person who protects you, the person who you go back to. And I got a range of windows, photographs of windows. And those photographs became the base of the BASA Award exhibition. And it was almost a sense of returning to a place of belonging, returning to a place of comfort, returning to a sense of belonging, and then looking out. So from that space of comfort, looking into the light, and having the guts to walk out there, to go out there, to venture forward. And it was quite challenging, because this is Bolelang's story, and I can't just move with it. So along the way, the first artwork for the BASA Awards was a work that looked like this, but then I took one of Bolelang's artworks and I incorporated it into it, and I sent it to him. So Bolelang got the first artwork. And I got his permission before doing the body of work, because this is his story, and he said he was so he he was grateful that that others were being inspired by his work and his story. So that's how the BASA Awards concept came about.
Oh, that's
Thank you
beautiful.
for sharing, because now everybody would know that it was a tribute to somebody special to you. And I mean, I didn't realize his mom had passed. It makes me sad, but it also makes me happy that you utilized that special moment, created a community that sent you pictures, and and you're keeping his mom's memory alive in so many of our homes in a way.
I wouldn't go
So
that
thank
far. I don't think I can own. I don't think I can own any part of his story or any part of his loss. But I was
Oh, not at
inspired
all.
by his story and inspired by his loss.
I mean, the words may have come out wrong. I didn't mean that. But what I'm saying is that he gave you the go-ahead to tell the story. And if he didn't feel that you were the right person to do it, he wouldn't have. And I think he appreciated it, and I appreciate it. So that's the point I was
So
making.
even the writing
Besides,
to BASA sorry.
no, carry on. No, you go. Tell us.
So even
I'm
the
so on a
writing
year.
To explain what a mother's window is about, went to Bolelang first to check if he was happy with it. So the whole process behind the scenes, he was involved. Because it's sensitive, and you have to be very careful because obviously we, as an artist, you can be inspired by anything, and you can use whatever's out there. But you have to be careful of how and whose stories you focus on, So it was very special to me that Bolelang allowed me to, and he had some kind of trust in me in this body of work to do it. Yeah.
Well, lots of people, not lots, but quite a few people have trust in you and love you.
So, MP, I want to just go back a little bit. Can you share the story of a 17-year-old MP in Italy?
I just have to say something, Ed. She's got Italian blood, and she's got
Irish.
Italian and Irish blood.
Irish.
So, okay.
So I'm
that's
half
why the
Irish,
pizza
half
story.
Italian. Yeah. So I'm half Irish, half Italian, and then South African. Very confusing. But at 17, I went to my dad's side of the family, and some of them lived. My dad's from a very small, incredibly beautiful village up in the mountains in Abruzzo, which is central Italy. But some of our family lives in Rieti, Rieti is exactly in the middle of Italy. It's right in the middle. They even have this large statue that you can stand in the middle point of Italy. And when I went to stay with them, I was, meeting the family. I spoke very, 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 very basic Italian. And one day I had started keeping visual diaries and sketching ideas and just sketching. And I was down an alleyway, and I was trying to, the buildings in Rieti and lots of Italy are very, very old, and there's modern buildings. And I was trying to capture the alleyway and learn how to do the perspective. So I was drawing on my paper trying to get the perspective. And this middle-aged man came up to me and he said, "Vieni, vieni," which means come. And I just followed him, which also now seems a bit strange, but I did. And I just followed him. And we went up these little stairs and down these corridors and down another corridor. And we got into this room and he opened the door. And it was an art studio, but there were works everywhere. There were somehow works connected to the ceiling, all paintings and sketches, works on the walls, works everywhere. And in the corner, the furthest corner from where the door was this little man. He must have been about 5'5", like very little, with these blue eyes and old, like probably in his 70s at least. And the middle-aged man said, "Come." And I went to the old man, and he's died now, but his name was Lorenzo Spadoni. And I looked at him and I was so excited. It's the first studio I'd ever been in, like a real artist studio. And I said, "E tu mi maestro," which badly means, "Will you be my maestro? Will you teach me?" And he said, no, 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 no. He said it like that, no, 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 no. And I said, per favore, per favore, per favore. Then he agreed to teach me a few lessons. And every day, I don't know, it might have been 3, 4, 5 lessons. Every day I went to his studio and he put an apple in exactly the same spots on the table. And he said, draw. I can't remember what draw is in Italian. And he pointed at the apple. And he would show me how to draw it. And I don't know, but I think what he was doing was he was trying to explain that you have to see that apple. You have to stop drawing the idea of an apple and you have to draw that apple, because he'd show me every day the light, how the light had changed and all of that stuff. But it sparked in me a realization that this is what I want to be. I want to have a studio, which I now have. I want to have a studio with works, and I want to be playing with ideas. He had polio and he couldn't walk very well, so he had a wheelchair. And a lot of his works, the studio was on probably the 3rd floor and it overlooked the piazza. And a lot of his works were of the view from the window, looking out at the piazza. So a lot of sunsets, a lot of sunrises, but from that perspective. And it made a fundamental mark in my trajectory. I came back to South Africa and I decided I want to study art. But I did terribly at school. So I didn't get a university exemption. So I got accepted at the local Technicon and I started off there, and I started off studying visual arts. And then after I finished my degree, I became a full-time painter for 10 years. And what the main work I did was commercial arts, which is like a client says, I want a reproduction of this Renaissance painting, we do a mural in the house, or I want a painting like this. We do what we're told, which in the visual arts world is very shunned upon, and it's not acceptable. But the truth is, it's an incredible way to learn how to paint and to uplift, to elevate your skill by just producing. And I did that for 10 years before I started my own company and going into the other components of the creative economy, which are also very, very interesting. But the one thing about my matric, I got a standard grade F in accounting. In matric, which I think is a fail. I did higher grade accounting. I did standard grade F. But I went on, when I did my MBA, I had to do financial management was one of my subjects. And I had to write an exam in financial management, and I got a distinction. And it really was something to me. Like, it's the same brain, it's the same person. That I managed to do that. So for 20 years, deep down, I thought I'm a little bit doof. I'm a little bit dumb, because I couldn't do these things. And so much later in life, realizing how we taught and the context of teaching influences so much what the output is,
Absolutely. So, yeah. And you said so many beautiful things. And then I'm going to come. Your love for art was influenced by that man, and he was looking through the window. Come to Balsam 25-year anniversary. You were inspired by the window. And there's so many beautiful points that you've actually made, but I'm just going to pick up on another one, actually, about learning. It's not about your grades. It's about you and your desire to be able to focus on your intent and make a success of it. And sometimes what people tell us and how we are taught impacts outcome. Doesn't mean we're stupid or dumb. I mean, having a distinction doing your MBA is just testament to what we're capable of when we build our confidence and our ability and, our voices into this world that you so beautifully do in terms of your art and physically do. So yeah, you have an incredible story to actually share on so many levels. I have another question, Ed. Do you have a follow-up question pertaining to art? Because I need to ask her something else.
Do you remember early in the show that she said that she was going to take a back seat, and I told you she wouldn't? Told you she wouldn't. No, go ahead, Charmaine.
I love you, Silhouette. Madam, I think you're very brave to have, I mean, you have 3 children. I made 2 of them actually. So you have 3 kids, right? But you decided to have home births in this day and age. What inspired that? How brave are you? Like, I think I'm brave, but not that brave.
I can't own that as being brave. I had home births because it's much cheaper. Like, I was an artist. My husband's a cabinet maker. Like, we were broke. And home birth was like, it was about, oh my goodness, it was about a fifth, if not less, of the price of a hospital birth. So I could stand here and be all noble, but it's not the truth. But my first child was, I lived in our family home that we turned into a student home and then kind of morphed. It had a flat and a house, and my sister lived in the house, and her firstborn was also born a home birth. And my firstborn was born in the same spot. You know, you get these water, it's almost like a water bath that you install for the period of birth, and the same spot. And then my third child was also born there. So there's a connection of location, and the same midwife delivered all of our children. You know, whether you're in a hospital or whether you're at home, birth is one of the most raw and excruciating experiences in life. I don't think we comprehend how, you know, in the 21st century, where we like technology and we're moving and shaking, the fact that women still have to grow babies and they have to come out is under, I don't know, it's a fundamental shift if you go through the experience, and not such a great one. It's very, no, that's not fair. It's profoundly impactful, the nature of birth. And home birth, you know, the idea of having, South Africa is one of the only places in the world where you can have an elective cesarean. In most places, you can only have a C-sector if you need to, if your baby's the wrong way around, or, you know, if there's medical reasons. But in South Africa, you can book it in. So you have this, you know, in a country with a huge divide between the wealthy and the poor, you then have this other element where the wealthy can actually choose to have a little slit and be put under and have their baby pop out. And then you have the poor going through this excruciating pain of the reality of birth, which is quite a conundrum to me and quite peculiar. So anyway, that was why I did home births.
So on behalf of all the men out there, we thank God that women deliver babies. Because if men delivered babies, our species would be extinct right now.
No,
God bless y'all.
Yeah, I mean, Maria made it's magical, but it is quite, I don't know, I can't explain it. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like the whole process,
the whole experience.
You are no longer the same person after you go through that. You change forever, you know. And then I had to do that 3 times over.
I wasn't as brave as you. One time was good for me, actually. And you know, Maria just made a point though, because most people that I know choose to go and have a cesarean birth.
That's not possible in other countries.
It is not.
It doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen in the States. Yeah. The only time it's some complications with the baby, and that's the only time they do a cesarean. Yeah.
And sometimes the gynecologist insists or recommends that you do it, because then he schedules it in his diary, so he doesn't have to come anytime when the baby's due. So it's convenient for them as well as people. Yeah, and it's another way of actually benefiting their pockets, and but anyway.
So I didn't even see gynecologists for my births in the whole process. I had a midwife, and you know, I didn't do it like afterwards. Like within the last 10 years, it's kind of becoming quite trendy to go back to the natural way and all of that. I didn't do it with any of that in mind. I did it because it was what I could afford, and it was because she was there and she was nice. You know,
Wow.
I love you. You know, you are so real and so authentic and so unafraid. For me, I mean, it's not often. I mean, I don't just give compliments. I say things that I really mean. So it comes from the bottom of my heart. So thank you. I do give compliments. I am generous, but I say it because I mean it, not because I have to be nice, because I'm not nice, Ed. You think I'm nice. See me in the boardroom.
there's a time to be nice and there's a time to be like solid. You know? I was saying to a colleague, I got into trouble for being a little bit blunt in emails and, you know, getting to the point. And I said to her, you know, there's a lot of dirt and little stones at the bottom of the swimming pool. And if we don't jump in and jump up and down and swim around, we're not going to see how much muck there is. So
Sure.
you have to make a stir, you have to make a noise so that the pool, you can see how dirty this water is. Instead of this tiptoeing in the water where all the muck can stay at the bottom and we think everything is clear. You know, there's a time for being nice and there's a time for being clear and honest. And
That's me.
You know, I think the speaking up and saying your truth, even if you're wrong, it stimulates and allows debate, and it forces others to have opinion. And to me, that's very, very important. So it's not about being right. It's about there's this. We can't ignore the mess. We've got to look at it, and then we can see how we're going to resolve it. But if we pretend it doesn't exist, what's the point? You know?
But it takes special kind of people to be able to have the courage to actually do that, because it's easier not to say anything and it's easier to just follow suit or conform, because that's the comfort zone.
I don't understand. So many people have said that to me. To me,
But you're a special kind of person, darling. The point I'm making, I mean, like, you will not keep quiet, and that's admirable. Whereas it's just you push the boundaries. I mean, you're okay being uncomfortable, but not everybody is okay being uncomfortable. And yeah, I would love for us, Eddie, my boyfriend, and you're also MP's boyfriend today.
Okay.
MPG. You know, I'm going to go specifically to the South African creative economy, right? I mean, that's where you play. Tell us a little bit about that. What can we do differently? What do you think? Yeah, just share your thoughts on that, because you're a researcher in that field.
Is the area that, you're going to have to get me to stop, because I'll just go on for the next 2 hours. I've applied to do my PhD on the creative economy in South Africa. Let's see if I get accepted. But you know, it's a topic that I really think is it's under analyzed, under researched, under spoken about. As soon as you step out of the arts and culture sector. So, and when you're in the arts and culture sector, they're speaking about arts and culture, which is one piece of a creative economy pie. It's not the creative economy. Arts and culture is one piece. And, you know, it frustrates me, because the potential of the sector to have an impact, I'm not saying it is the solution alone, but it should be part of the conversations to have a real impact on youth unemployment in South Africa, is there. But we are not part of the conversations outside of our sector, and we miss the opportunities. And then within the arts and culture sector, the amount of times I've had debates about the idea, actually yesterday I had a debate about this, the idea of commercializing the arts, the removal of art for art's sake. And it's like, it boggles me, where you've got, I think we're currently at a 60% unemployment rate in South Africa. That's under 35s. Like 35-year-olds, not a youngster, you know, 60% unemployment rate. And we're going to have a discussion about art for art's sake. It's like, no, we have to have a discussion about art for art's sake alongside generating income and making a living for yourself. And, you know, the nuances and the discussion are so simplified. And I really think there's a need for robust discussion internally in order to speak externally to government, to corporate, to other sectors about the potential value of the sector. And it's not, you know, people jump straight into, what's the growth strategies? What's the franchise models for, creative entrepreneurs who are successful? I'm not talking that. The creative economy around the world is micro-entrepreneurship. It's 1 to 5 employees. It's very small. It's very low profits, but it has most creative businesses have a strong drive for social impact alongside generating income. Yeah, but the focus is often on the social impact. And my argument is we need to also look at the generating income so you can go home and feed your kids. So you can be proud that you're paying your rent or your bond. It's not an either or. And I think there's a lot of potential for growth in developing support structures to grow the creative economy in South Africa. But there's a need for real support structures to be in place for it to succeed.
Maria, MP, sorry. So if we gave you a magic wand, what is the 2 or 3 things that you would do to realize what you've just said? Social impact plus income.
The first thing I would do, which is, sorry, see, I just jumped.
Jump in, it's okay. This conversation is just
So the first thing I would do, the South African cultural, SACI, the South African Creative Industries Incubator, they have started exploring this, and I would follow suit. So what they've done is they've taken a really crappy abandoned building in Eersterus. Eersterus is a township like outside Pretoria. When I was doing workshops there, Uber wouldn't collect me. It's that kind of area. But Uber wouldn't collect me.
That's how she's crazy, right? She has courage to step into places that other people normally wouldn't go. So she's like my sister.
I love it.
Okay, Uber wouldn't collect you. Tell us more.
Oh, sorry. Lots of alcohol and drug problems, and lots of youngsters who are a bit bored. They don't have jobs. They aren't at varsity. They don't know what to do. So they smoke a bit of weed to make the time go by, which would be fine, if there was a context that would elevate them. And the founder of SACI, her big hashtag is normalize access. And she always speaks about normalizing access. That the idea that the best music equipment or photographic equipment or videography equipment is found in the northern suburbs, which is the middle upper areas of Joburg, is the wrong approach. It has to be found in the township. So those young kids who are growing up in very challenging locations, they are growing up with the sense that they know what a laser cutter is. They know what a fancy camera is because they've seen it, they've used it. They're not experiencing lesser than other areas. And their model is really impressive. They've got this beautiful warehouse that they took over. They renovated it, they fixed it up, and they offer studio spaces, workshops, a lot of strong focus on creative entrepreneurship. So I'm getting sidetracked. The first thing I would do is which is very challenging, and it sounds simple and it's not, I would establish creative hubs around South Africa. The challenge of it is that, and I've seen this firsthand, is that even though there's a lot of abandoned buildings everywhere, this initiative is starting to happen. I worked at Constitution Hill for a year, and we were turning the first maternity hospital in South Africa, which had been turned into flats, four stories, huge. Turning this abandoned building into a creative hub. The one challenge is that
MP,
can you hear me?
Constitutional Hill,
yeah.
Just a little bit of background about Constitutional Hill for the people outside SA that don't know what it is.
So Constitution Hill, number one, is they call it a living museum. It's where many of the many freedom fighters during apartheid were imprisoned there. So it's a prison. It was a prison. And they've kept quite a lot of components of the prison on site, which is now a museum. But alongside that is Constitution Court, which is the Constitutional Court of South Africa, is based on the site. And the concept behind it is continually being reminded of where we can go as a nation, when we don't have equal rights. And then alongside that, the CEO currently, Dawn Robertson, and I agree with her, she believes that the creative economy is the way to speak to youth. So if you want to get youth engaging in real social issues, our history, our future, do it through creativity. So she's brought this idea of activism and art standing side by side. And part of that is the development of a creative hub, which is called the Creative Uprising Hub at Constitution Hill, which offers opportunity and support to creatives. How they do that is then, I was only there for 1 year, so I'm not sure if what I was implementing is still being done. But in essence, the one major thing is having low-cost studios at Constitution Hill, so tourists can come and buy directly from artists and creatives can reflect and contemplate and show freedom of speech through creativity.
Thank you for that. Okay, we can go back. I just needed to, tell people what that was about. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So, the idea of creative hubs, sorry, the idea of creative hubs is that the one challenge is that a creative hub, like a makerspace, these two concepts are very fourth industrial revolution in some ways, very contemporary. The idea of a flat model, the idea of that we are all equals. We do not work in a hierarchy. So a creative hub can only succeed if you follow a flat model approach. And what that means is that whether you're a single artist making paintings, or whether you're the founder and CEO of the organization that has offered the studio space, you are equal. And in theory, that sounds easy to implement, but in practice, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts and tensions that arise, hierarchy is always the go-to solution. And that hierarchy destroys the concept of creative hubs and makerspaces. So number one, I would create creative hubs and makerspaces with the right people running them and with the right ethos. Number two, I would have a very strong focus on creative entrepreneurship. I would like to do my research for my PhD on the introduction of creative entrepreneurship in tertiary education at all art schools. So whether you're studying performance or acting or music or visual arts, that a core part of your training is creative entrepreneurship. Not entrepreneurship. You don't have to learn the franchise model. It has no relevance. It has to be relevant to the creative economy. So you're learning, how do I open a business? How do I open a business account? How could I generate income? How could I get clients within the context of me developing my visual arts career? So very relevant to what they're studying. Because what they would do if tertiary education was for the arts, was including creative entrepreneurship across the board, when these youngsters leave varsity, because 99% of them have no jobs when they leave. 99% of them are like going to have to be creative entrepreneurs, and they've had no training of it. They understand identity and concept, but they don't know how to make a living for themselves. So you're just having this influx of more and more youngsters graduated with no jobs. And what that would do... It's
actually sad.
It's very sad, and it has
sad,
the potential...
frustrating.
It has the potential to stimulate that those that have gone through varsity have already got the foundation of what creative entrepreneurship is. It's ticking in their minds. So the people who don't get the opportunity to go to varsity, they can be the focal area for all the organizations that are offering creative entrepreneurship training can focus on them. They don't have to focus on this monster of all youngsters who are in the creative economy having no idea about creative entrepreneurship. Because those that have the opportunity to go to university have already received the basic training. So it lessens the pressure on the organizations that are training and teaching creative entrepreneurship. So that's what I would love to do my PhD on, because there's a need for a change in thinking within our sector. This notion of learning entrepreneurship removes the value and the depth of the arts is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's not an either or. We all have to live, we no longer live in the Van Gogh or Basquiat legacy. You know, we're not, artists don't have to be that anymore, waiting to be discovered. We the 21st century, we need to come up with it, you know.
I love that. Isn't this amazing? For somebody who had an FR accounting in the process of doing the PhD, I hope people are listening to this. Don't let your final results in school determine what you choose to become or what you become. Look at the success story in front of us. Maria, you're phenomenal on every level, and I love you. I honestly mean it. You're incredible. Do you have more questions for this amazing, passionate? You can see she's Italian, right? She speaks with her hands and she goes all over the place.
Sorry.
No, I love that. I love you being you. Maria, besides your PhD,
you're muted. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I glanced at some of your art on Instagram as you were chatting. It's absolutely beautiful.
he's stalking you.
In a good way.
Okay, good. You're allowed.
She's going to be my girlfriend. I got to, know a little more. But as you were putting your art together and your portfolio together, what was your first piece that got real, as they like to say, real recognition? And how did you feel?
Sure. To be an artist is an incredibly challenging choice as a career. And, when I left university, I decided I just want to be a painter. I wouldn't even call myself an artist because I studied in the late 90s, or I finished in 2001. And I was in the heart of conceptual art, where you throw stick a banana on the wall in the gallery, and that's art. And I hated it. It pissed me off. And so when I left varsity, I just wanted to paint, and I didn't think I was good enough. So I become quite obsessive when I'm doing anything. I'm very focused. And I just created a lot of works. And, for the first 10 years of my career, I was a painter. I sold some works, but I internally was not satisfied with the outputs. And in all honesty, it was during COVID, we were told to go to lockdown. We all had to go home. And I just grabbed, what am I going to do at home? So I just grabbed some imagery of the artists and the people that I had worked with in the space. I had taken photographs of them. And I took the photographs, I took black paper, and I went home and I started making art all day, every day. And that was only in 2020. And I really started liking what I was seeing. And that's very different to when did somebody else acknowledge what you were doing? Because when you start liking what you do, it almost doesn't. Yeah. Of course, you want gallery technology, of course. But when you like, this is right. I don't know what it is, but this is right. Then going to the galleries is much easier. So I approached the first gallery. I had about 20 works. I went to the first gallery. Yes, we want your works. I signed to them for a year. Then I went to another gallery, and yes, we want to have a solo with you. And since that moment that I was completely satisfied with, obviously I want to grow. I'm not saying it's perfect, but that there was some, this is it. I'm onto something here. That's when my visual arts career started moving. And that's 20 years into the career. So, as a visual artist, there's this saying of visual artists: be wary of the artist because they're comfortable in the top. I'm going to forget the full saying, but beware of the artist because they're comfortable with the working class and with the upper class. And there's such truth in that. As an artist, you have to have these hoity-toity conversations over red wine and little canopies, and then you put on your overall and you're dirty and you're raw and you're intense, and you do both. And artists, I think, like now we're on site at Henley and we're talking to the dean of Henley and we're having proper conversations, and then we go for lunch and they have these beautiful, amazing lunches, and then we're hanging out with the flat painters who are busy painting the building. We're comfortable in both worlds, and that notion of fluidity is really important to the career and the life of an artist. So to answer your question, there isn't one moment. There's progressively many moments, the reason why I carry on making art is without it, I can't understand the purpose. And that's the truth. And that doesn't mean I'm that rational. But in the process of making art, in the process of being alone and cutting, my mind has a chance to be itself. And that's core to, so there's no way I will ever stop making art because I analyze the world through making the art. And then there's a hope that, please God, let galleries and people like what I'm doing so that I could make some money so I could do more of this. You know, that's the truth of artists. Yesterday, I was having a discussion with fellow artists, the arts company Soweto, Thabo and Molefe. And they were saying, so are you a commercial artist or not a commercial artist? And I was like, well, what do you mean? All artists are commercial artists. All galleries, except university galleries and museum, government museums, are commercial. We all want to make a living out of it. There's nothing offensive or wrong in wanting to generate an income out of what you do. So it's an ongoing journey.
You said something quite magical, I have to say. When you started believing in yourself, when you started appreciating your work, there was more, doors that were opening up because you had the confidence to go and showcase it. And it's so important that people realize that you have to have the self-belief and the confidence and work towards that because it's an easier sell in many levels. I mean, you don't care about other people's opinion outside of art. I'm sure when it comes to art, you do. It's because you're confident in who you are. And you are MP wherever, in any spaces. Even though you're having those hoity-toity wines and canapes, you're still Maria. And that authenticity is what actually gets you through that door and gives you your legacy, actually. Longevity, that's the point I'm making.
Part of me thinks that that's actually the job of the artist. You have to be sincere. Whatever you are, doesn't matter. Whatever you are, whatever your views are, you have to be true to what you think, and you have to be true to how you perceive society, whether it's a popular or not popular view. It's irrelevant. So it's as ridiculous to always be trying to be controversial as it is to always say yes. You've got to be honest, and to be honest to yourself is probably one of the most challenging components of anyone's existence. The one thing in what you're saying about being confident, part of me starting to like what I was producing. It wasn't that I suddenly be true to yourself, find a level of confidence in yourself. It was that I put in hundreds of hours cutting, hundreds of hours painting, hundreds of hours sketching in my sketch pads, and all of those bits were starting to come together. So it's not just like, no, you're great, you're great, you're great. It's like, you're not great. Work harder. You're not great. Your skill is not there. Push. So, this notion of it's just about confidence, I don't agree with either. It's about confidence in your ability to be more than you currently are.
I mean, that's so powerfully stated. I mean, my son is an artist as well. He went to the Euro trip and decided he's going to do art at grade 10, and he wasn't doing it at that stage. But he is it Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours? That's it. It's about refining and crafting and doing the work to be able to gain that confidence. So it's such an important lesson for people out there. It's like you gain confidence by actually doing the hours. So that's the point I was going to.
The irony or the joke is like, no, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. You can't
it is about
put
money.
in, but you can't put in thousands of hours of work unpaid and think it's about the money. But making a living out of it is not a negative either. So it's both and. You have to do it because you have this inner sense that this is my language. I have to speak my language, and then ideally you can generate an income while speaking your language.
I'm with you on this, actually. I mean, Maria, I have another. Do I have a question? No. Ed, do you have a question? I had a question, but now it's kind of slipped my mind. Ed, do you have a question for this beautiful woman?
It slipped your mind.
Stop laughing. Yes, because because I was so caught up in what she was saying. I do believe No, I do have the question now. Maria,
It slipped back in.
it did, it did. I wanted to create the correlation between art and mental health, though, right? So the question that I actually have for you, so when you go and do your art and you say to escape and you're thinking, does it actually bring in peace or what is it?
You know, for so many years, I had this, like, you know, when you think to yourself, what do I want out of life? What do I want out of life? For so many years, I want a sense of peace. And that's always been at the back of my mind. I'm quite a feisty, quite intense character. And it's like,
I
I
love
want
you.
a sense of peace, a sense of calm in that volatility. And it was again during 2020 that I realized, it's in the process of making that I get that sense of peace. So I can't separate them. And quite a lot of people have generally men have asked, why don't you use a laser cutter, like to cut your works? Why don't you use the machine? And they, like, number one, the work is too fine. The laser cutter, unless you had a very high-end one, would burn the paper because I go so, like my lines are 1 millimeter, in some areas they're 1 millimeter thick.
It's
they're
intricate.
little, very, very intricate. But on another more real reason is, well, then what's the point? If I'm getting a laser cutter, and then the argument is it's about the concept. And to me, no, it's not. The process of making is critical to why I'm an artist. If I got somebody else to cut for me, or if I got a laser cutter to do the work for me, the relevance and reason why I do it is lost, because it's in the process of making that I get a very deep sense of peace. And my husband's even like, when he'll say to me, you need to go cut. You just need to go cut. And it's when I can't sleep and I'm going crazy and I get really hectic. Just go cut for hours, and I'll cut till 3 a.m. I'll cut and cut and cut, and I become like I go into this other space. It's very meditative.
It is. It's your space, and that's what I often find, though. Every single one of us actually has a creative outlet. Not all of us are artists to be able to. So the point I'm making is arts and the creativity just brings healing and therapy to people that are open to it. It's not just nice to have. There's a correlation between mental wellness and creativity, actually. So
the idea of art being nice to have is so ridiculous to me. And but you see, I speak as the person making it. I'm not the buyer.
I'm a consumer. I'm a consumer of art, so I speak from that.
I'm not a consumer. So
yeah,
in some ways, I'm not a consumer.
It was an absolute reality during COVID, right? How many of us either started watching movies, listening to more music, drawing, to consume the arts when we were in our little spaces to pass time? Don't you agree? I'm not talking about just visual art.
That's what's so funny about this argument about art for art's sake versus the creative economy. Like, how can you put the word creative and the word economy together? It undermines the creative process. That's arguments I've received quite a few times, and it's so ridiculous to me, because the arts, and then on a larger scale the creative economy, which includes industrial design, architecture, interior design, gaming, all of these worlds are the reminder of why of the deeper reasoning for life, for existence, for the human spirit. So we don't need to justify ourselves. And I think that often the arts simplify their role by not being bold enough to have the conversation outside of our sector. Stop speaking to each other. Stop fighting about not having enough money. Go out there. There's so many incredible opportunities if we stop trying to prove that we have value, and we deeply just accept we have intense value within society. History shows us.
Well, you being on this platform is being the voice for many of artists, your passion, your drive, the way you land in your messages. So thank you for that. Any closing, Ed, any questions, or do you have a closing point that you want to land with our viewers and listeners?
I would say, speak to, lead if I always in sessions with, you're on a global stage, what would you say to, a particular audience? But speak to those creative young people that are out there. What would you say if you're standing in front of all of the creative teenagers that may not see an outlet for their creativity?
My first thing that I would say to them is be bold. Be bold. Challenge the status quo. You're the next step. And I know the visual arts sector is the one that I know the best because I'm in that sector. Like, when did artists become so damn obedient? Like, be bold, challenge, be naughty, be rebellious, and that would be my first comment. And then the second would be to be humble. Realize where your skills levels are at. Don't preach from the rooftop about that you're a genius if you don't have the skills and the capabilities to show for it. So number one, be rebellious and bold. And number two, be humble in that rebelliousness and that boldness.
Oh, I love that. Such a powerful statement. You're amazing. I love you. Thank you for hanging out with us. And to all our viewers that come out and listen to us, thank you for being in this space with us. And support artists, appreciate the work. And we'll put all your contacts on. So hopefully you're going to get lots of people that's going to reach out for your research, for your work, as well as to tap into that beautiful mind of yours, because you have a lot to offer our world. And you're an amazing woman. Thank you for what you do.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Fabulous. Love and light, everyone. Take good care.
Everyone have a great one. Take care.
Bye.